Hey everyone! In this video, I'll show you how to set up routes, GatherMate2, and Worth It to perform and record a gathering route for gold farming. So this is actually a pretty simple process. Here we are in Red Ridge Mountains, and what we're going to do first is type /routes, and that's going to bring up the routes interface. What we're going to do here is we're going to select the zone that we're in, which is Red Ridge, right there. Now I'm just going to also name the route Red Ridge Mountains Mining Herbalism or something like that, because that's mainly what we're going to be doing. Now we have several options here of what kind of route to create. We can create a bare route and just kind of add our own things, but what we really want to do is we want to add information from GatherMate2. So it's already selected here, but we don't want it just adding everything because some of these things are sort of garbage. For example, we probably don't care about the archaeology find, in this gold farm, nor do we particularly care about the fishing nodes in this particular farm. All we care about is mining and herbalism. So what we're going to do is go down here and select all the herbs that are in the database. And what I like to do as well is go ahead and check the treasure boxes too, because often they're kind of along the way and they're pretty easy to spot. So if you happen to see any of them sort of floating about, sometimes it's pretty easy to just check to see if they're there. All right, then what we do is we click Create Route. All right, now what first appears on your map is this insanity here, this just crazy lines everywhere. It's literally going to every single node on the entire map, which is pretty crazy. So that's not exactly the most efficient or useful route to follow. So here's how we can clean up all that garbage. So we go to Red Ridge Mountains down here, and we're going to choose our route that we created. And in here, we're going to click the heading Optimize Route. We click this. First thing we can do is cluster the routes together so that we're not actually going to every single node that exists along the path. Instead, we're kind of going to be flying sort of in between all the nodes, and all we have to do is make a quick little detour from the line or the path or the route or whatever you want to call it to pick up the node and then get right back into the action. So, re-click Cluster. Okay, now it clustered all the routes, and that cleaned that up a little bit, but it's possible that we could do a little bit better still. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to try this optimize route. Basically, the artificial intelligence of this program or what add-on or whatever you want to call it tries to figure out the most efficient way to do this. You can choose to do this through either foreground or background CPU. Typically, I just click foreground. Let's hope it doesn't screw things up completely. Let's try it. Okay, and so a couple of seconds or minutes later, depending on how slow your computer is, it tells you that it's created this this path. And it says, for example, in my chat log, it says a path with 96 nodes found with a length of 12,154.12 yards after 5 iterations in 1.57 seconds. Okay, whatever. We really don't care about that. The only thing, this now allows us to hunt down every single node in this zone and of the most efficient path possible. So now I can also turn on Farm HUD, and we could just start following this path, and as you can see, the little nodes are popping up all over the place, and all we got to do is fly down here and grab each one. But how do we know that this particular farm, especially being an old world farm, is even remotely worth doing? Well, that's where Worth It comes in. So we're going to click Worth It over here, and in Worth It's interface, we're going to go down to My Farms. We're going to choose this thing called the recorder option here. I'm going to reset the recorder because I had something else going earlier. And what we're going to do is go ahead and click Editor. We're going to give this one a name. We're going to call it Red Ridge Mountains Mining Herbalism. Okay. And click Save. There's literally nothing in it right now. And then when we are ready to begin our route and see if it's worth doing, we're going to click Start. So, pretty straightforward. Let's click start and do this for a while and see what we end up with. So we're just going to fly around now, collecting all of these mining nodes and herbs and maybe a treasure chest or two that we happen to stumble across along the way. And eventually we'll have a pretty good understanding of what this zone has to offer in terms of gold per hour. Okay, so I paused the recorder for just a moment to talk about one little issue here. You'll notice that even though the AI tries to optimize the route, sometimes it can make some stupid mistakes. You'll notice that in this spot of the map, in the bottom right, we have this copper vein, which technically isn't even in Red Ridge. It's like off the map in the middle of freaking nowhere. And so are these two little nodes, Briarthorn and Copper Vein. Now, what you can do in routes is you can actually go in here and manually get rid of each one of these stupid little veins and just remove them from your route altogether. That is the way that you can kind of narrow down and further optimize and correct these routes as needed. Okay, it has been 10 minutes and I stopped the timer. Now, one thing to note whenever you're doing a farm is that obviously the longer you spend doing a farm, the more accurate your data is going to be, because you'll just have picked up that many more nodes and kind of reduce some of the confusion and errors and extraneous junk that you kind of pick up along the way and so on. So now let me show you kind of how to clean up your estimate though. We're going to click editor and we're going to see here that we picked up most of this stuff is stuff we picked up from just the nodes that we sort of expected. But you'll notice that we got a little bit of extra linen cloth and some other items. I'm going to actually hold the shift key to remove those because those items came from mobs that we happened to, mercilessly kill as we landed near them. You could just leave this stuff in there if you wanted to, but if you want a really accurate estimation of the items that you're intending to farm instead of just all this kind of extra stuff, then that's what you need to do. You need to go through this manually and edit out the items that you don't want. I'm also going to delete the raw gold here because we only picked that up from various mobs that we killed too. Okay, then we're going to click save. And even though this has only been 10 or 11 minutes, according to Worth It does estimate up to an hour the gold per hour that you would have made from this farm if we had just kept doing basically the same thing for the next hour, for the next 50 minutes. What amount of gold will we end up with? So we can click Worth It and see. So I'm going to close this out, make sure we saved it, close it out, open up Worth It. We're on My Farms, and we're going to look for our Red Ridge farm here. So there it is. And Worth It estimates that if we actually spend an hour on this farm, we would be getting about 2,336 gold per hour. And those items that we collected in our farm have basically a 33% sell rate. That sell rate is nice as far as materials and items go, but the amount of gold is just awful. I mean, obviously, Red Ridge, assuming that, if it pans out for the next 50 minutes as it did the first 10, this would be an idiotic farm to even try to do when you can do, gold farms that are just raw gold farms and make about 4,000 gold an hour. It doesn't even make any sense to even come out here to do this. But as an example, that is how you get a route with routes and how you can use Worth It and GatherMate2 data to figure out the best way to manage all of your gold farming. And that's it. Have a good day, everybody. Stay strong.